Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate 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 Vasudevaya.
Word to word. Nigama Kalpataroho Galitam Phalam Shuka Mukad Amrita Drava Samyutam Pibhata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam Muhu Aho Rasikaha Bhuvi Bhavukaha Nigamakalpataror Galitam Phalam Shukamukad Amritadrava Samyutam Pibhata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha Nigamakalpataror Galitam Phalam. Okay. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad-Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful. Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Purport. In the two previous shlokas, it has been definitely proved that the Srimad-Bhagavatam is the sublime literature which surpasses all other Vedic scriptures due to its transcendental qualities. It is transcendental to all mundane activities and mundane knowledge. In this shloka, it is stated that Srimad-Bhagavatam is not only a superior literature, but is the ripened fruit of all Vedic literatures. In other words, it is the cream of all Vedic knowledge. Considering all this, patient and submissive hearing is definitely essential. With great respect and attention, one should receive the message and lessons imparted by Srimad-Bhagavatam. The Vedas are compared to the desire tree because they contain all things knowable by men. They deal with mundane necessities as well as spiritual realization. The Vedas contain regulated principles of knowledge covering social, political, religious, economic, military, medicinal, chemical, physical and metaphysical subject matter, and all that may be necessary to keep the body and soul together. Above and beyond all this are specific directions for spiritual realization. Regulated knowledge involves a gradual raising of the living entity to the spiritual platform. And the highest spiritual realization is knowledge that the personality of Godhead is the reservoir of all spiritual tastes or rasas. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminati Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nigama Kalpataror Galitam Phalam Shukamukad Amrita Driva Samyutam Pibhata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavukaha. Translation. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad-Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Hare Krishna. So, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna advises Arjuna that Traigunya Vishaya Veda Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna Nirdvando Nitya Sattvasto Niryogakshema Atmavan. So it is said the Vedas generally deal with Traigunya Vishaya Veda, no? The Trigunas, Traigunya Vishaya Veda. So, Krishna advising Arjuna that you Nistraigunyo Bhava Arjuna, you become transcendental to all these three modes of material nature. So, it is said, Nirdvando Nitya Sattvasto, Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. So, Nirdvando means the duality, and then Krishna is advising Arjuna that you become transcendental to these duality, or you become transcendental to these three modes of material nature, and you become transcendental, Krishna is saying. So, Nitya Sattvasta means there are three modes of material nature, mode of goodness, passion and ignorance. So, in this material world, if we see if someone is in the mode of goodness, so it will not happen that he is completely in the mode of goodness. It will not, in this material world, we cannot be fully in the mode of goodness. It's like if a person is in the mode of goodness, it is considered that he is in the mode of goodness. Like for example, a person is in the mode of goodness, he has 80% of goodness and then 15% of Rajoguna and then 5% of Tamoguna. Like that. So in that way, in this material world, even though a person is in the mode of goodness, it is not pure goodness. It is not, we cannot consider this as pure Shuddha Sattva. So here Krishna is saying that Nitya Sattvasta, in a pure state of spiritual existence. Though it is considered as Shuddha Sattva or Vishuddha Sattva or Vasudeva Sattva. It is spiritual platform. So here Krishna advising Arjuna that you become transcendental, you come to this state of existence. You come to pure state, spiritual state. So if you come to the spiritual state, then there is no duality. Then there is no, when we get something good, we feel happy. When something distressed, then we feel little distressed, disturbed. This is a duality. This is the mode of material nature. When someone is affected by these three modes of material nature, this is the behavior he shows. So Krishna is saying that you become transcendental. Niryoga Kshema means free from the ideas of gain and protection. So Krishna says, Labho, Labho, Jayo, Jayo. So there is no consideration of feeling good or bad or feeling happy or distressed. You become transcendental to these modes. Niryoga Kshema Atmavan, established in the self. So you become spiritual. So all the material actions, every action has a reaction. Like if a person is very pious, he is doing good activities, he is helping people, all these things. So then if we do a good action, then we will get a good reaction. So but this good action and good reaction, it will not save us from this material existence. So if a person is a pious, then he will get pious result, and to enjoy that pious result, again he have to come back to this material world. And of course, if we doing sinful activities, he has to come back to suffer. So these fruitive activities which are mentioned in the Vedas generally mention Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda and Upasana Kanda. So Karma Kanda is fruitive activities. When we do activity, we get some fruitive results. So you do this yajna, do this, and you will get this result. This is a Karma Kanda. And then Jnana Kanda is of speculation, mental speculation. So even in Bhagavatam it is mentioned, their philosophy is neti neti. Neti neti means not this, not this. So they always try to analyze. Is this Brahman? Is this Brahman? Is this absolute truth? they analyze and they try to speculate, mental speculation. So in this way, no, this is also not in a pure spiritual platform. And Upasana Kanda, there are so many demigod worship. Everything is for you worship and then you will get something. So these are not in the spiritual platform. The Vedas generally deal with things which are fruitive. You expect something. And this fruitive results, it cause, as we discussed, you do pious activity, you will get good result, and then you do sinful activity, and then you will get bad result. This is all cause of bondage in this material world. So here Krishna advises Arjuna that you become transcendental to these modes of material nature, and to don't engage in these fruitive results. You establish in the spiritual platform. You establish in yourself. Niryoga Kshema Atmavan, Krishna is saying. So Vedas deal with this fruitive activities, which are some expectation is there in all these activities, and which is the cause of bondage. And the more condensed form is Upanishads. Upanishads, it speaks on the substance. Then Upanishads, it starts the spiritual realization. It is more condensed form of Vedas. And then from the Upanishads, even more condensed form is the Vedanta. Vedanta philosophy. There it is directly to the spiritual content. So there it is said, Atato Brahma Jignasa. So you inquire about the absolute truth. You inquire about the supreme Brahman. And then Janmadhyasya Yataha. So all sutras, it is directly to the spiritual realization. So, and this Srimad-Bhagavatam is the natural commentary for the Vedanta Sutra. So, as we discussed in the previous classes also, it is in the beginning, it is starting with this. In the Vedanta Sutra, it is said, Janmadhyasya Yataha Atadu Brahma Jignasa. So, you inquire about the Supreme, you inquire about the absolute truth. But in Vedanta Sutra, it is not directly mentioned who is that Supreme, who is the absolute truth. But in Srimad-Bhagavatam, in the very beginning, it is mentioned, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, I offer obeisances to Krishna, is the absolute truth. So, it's a natural commentary for the Vedanta Sutra. So, that's why in the purport, Prabhupada mentions, it is starting with, in the two previous slokas, it has been definitely proved that Srimad-Bhagavatam is a sublime literature which surpasses all other Vedic scriptures due to its transcendental qualities. So as it becomes more condensed from the Vedas, Upanishads and then Vedanta Sutra, so Srimad-Bhagavatam is the essence of Vedic literature. So that's why it is mentioned here, Pipada Bhagavatam Rasamalayam. So this is the essence of Vedic literature. So in the Bhagavad Gita it is mentioned that all purposes served by a small well can at once be served by a great reservoir of water. Similarly, all the purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. So generally the karmakandis who follows the Vedas, they engage in the fruitive activities, they perform this fruitive activities with the expectation, expecting something. They are more into the rules, regulations and then rituals. So if someone is just attached to the rituals, not knowing the goal behind the rituals and not knowing behind these activities, so then he cannot come to this transcendental position. If someone was to come to this transcendental position, he should understand the goal behind these activities, the goal behind whatever is said in the Vedas. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna clearly says that Vedesha Sarvair Ahameva Vedya. So by knowing, I am to be known by understanding Vedas. So I am the goal. So and Vedantakrit Veda Vid Ehav Chaham. So I am the compiler of the Vedas. So the point here is Vedesha Sarvair Ahameva Vedya. by reading all the Vedas, I am to be known. If someone understood Krishna, so then the purpose is satisfied. So, if someone just attached to the rituals and then fruitive activities, not knowing the goal, so then the purpose is not satisfied. So that's why it is said, the all purposes of the Vedas can be served to one who knows the purpose behind them. So the purpose behind studying Vedas, understanding Vedas, should be to know Krishna. So Srimad-Bhagavatam is directly emphasizing the goal behind studying Vedas. So when someone engages himself in studying Srimad-Bhagavatam, so from the very beginning he can understand that he should engage in the devotional service of Krishna. We should glorify Krishna. So that is the goal of Vedas. That is directly given in Srimad-Bhagavatam. So that is the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is emphasized in Srimad-Bhagavatam. So that is so when someone is glorifying Krishna, when someone understands the goal of Vedas, then he is considered as the highest Vedantist. So when somebody chanting the glories of the Lord, when someone is glorifying in the form of chanting or in the form of reading Srimad-Bhagavatam, explaining Srimad-Bhagavatam, preaching Srimad-Bhagavatam, so he is considered as the highest transcendentalist. So that's why Srimad-Bhagavatam, in the previous verse it is mentioned, Dharma Prochita Kaita Votra, Paramo Dharmatsarana. So all the materially motivated religion is kicked out from Srimad-Bhagavatam. It is purely speaking about the devotional service of the Lord, and it is purely glorifying the Supreme Lord. So that's why in this verse it is mentioned that Bhagavatam Rasamalayam. So that is the essence of the Vedas, to glorify Krishna, to understand Krishna. So Srimad-Bhagavatam is to the point. It is the only, there is no mundane things are taught in Srimad-Bhagavatam. It is only the pure devotional service is emphasized in Srimad-Bhagavatam. So in the purport, Prabhupada explains that Srimad-Bhagavatam is a sublime literature which surpasses all other Vedic scriptures due to its transcendental qualities. So this is the transcendental quality of Srimad-Bhagavatam, that is, it is emphasizing more on the pure devotional service. So as we discussed in previous verse also, that Krishna concludes his instruction in Srimad-Bhagavad Gita that you surrender unto me, Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Raja. So that is the conclusion given by Krishna. So Srimad-Bhagavatam is, from the beginning, it is emphasizing on surrender to Krishna and is glorifying. That's why in the previous verse, in the purport, Prabhupada mentions that the Srimad-Bhagavatam is purely transcendental literature which can be understood only by the pure devotees of the Lord who are transcendental to competitive sense gratification. So this competitive sense gratification is eliminated from Srimad-Bhagavatam. So in the purport, Prabhupada mentions that the Vedas contain regulative principles of knowledge covering social, political, religious, economic, military, medicinal, chemical, physical and metaphysical subject matter. So all that may be necessary to keep the body and soul together. Above and beyond all this are specific directions for spiritual realization. So all these mundane things, political, social, and then physical, all these things, this is all required. It is required to keep the body and soul together, but this is not the ultimate goal of life. Our goal of life should be to realize, as we are soul, as a soul we are servant of Lord, we are meant to serve Krishna and we are meant to engage in devotional service of Lord. So that is the goal of life, that is the ultimate goal. So that should be the goal of life, but the Vedas, it gives more emphasis on maintaining the body and soul together, all these mundane things. So as we see, there are different grades that we see a Brahmana. Who is a Brahmana? Brahmana is Brahma Jnanat iti Brahmana. So in Brahmana also there are different grades that we also call Purohit. Purohit, the Purohit means, Pura means external and Hita means doing good, like that. So he is Purohit means his motive is to maintain the body and soul together. So we can see many Brahmanas, they go everywhere and then they do yajna, homas, and then they do this samskaras. So the motive is, by doing this, they just maintain the body and soul together. So the point is, that is not the ultimate goal. A Brahmana should know the Brahma Jnanatiti Brahmana, who is Brahman, who is the Supreme Lord, he should know that. So the more elevated from Brahmana is a Vipra. Vipra is a greatly learned scholar, a learned Brahmana. So he knows the philosophy and he understood that the Brahman, he understood the Supreme Lord. He is Brahman. He is Vipra. He is more elevated from Brahmana. And then a Vaishnava, he is even more elevated from a Vipra than Brahmana or Vipra. Because Vaishnavas, they know the purpose of life, they know the ultimate goal of life, to engage in the devotional service of the Lord, to glorify Krishna. So that's why in Bhagavatam it is mentioned, Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam. The Srimad-Bhagavatam is very dear to Vaishnavas, because Vaishnavas, they engage in glorification of Lord, they take pleasure in glorification of the Lord. So that's why in this verse also it is mentioned, the Rasam Alayam, they take pleasure in taking the essence of the Vedic scriptures. So here it is mentioned that Shukamukad Amrita Dravya Samhitam. Now it is emanated from the lips of Shukadeva Goswami. So when it is emanated from the Shukadeva Goswami's lips, so it becomes more nectar. As we see, a fruit is already a nectar. When it is touched by a parrot, generally we see this guava fruit, it touched by this parrot, this red beak, so then it becomes more taste. So in that way, Vyasadeva spoke to Srimad-Bhagavatam. So Shukadeva Goswami heard it from Vyasadeva. When Shukadeva Goswami repeats it, so it becomes more nectar, more, the taste becomes more. So also that is why the parampara, the disciplic succession is emphasized. So when this knowledge is given by Krishna to Brahma, and then Brahma gave this knowledge to Vyasa, and Vyasadeva gave this knowledge to Madhva, and then again this disciplic succession is continuing. So the knowledge is same. When Krishna spoke Bhagavatam to Brahma, it is only 4 verses. It was very short, and it's very difficult to understand also. So then from there it is expanded. Now we have 18,000 verses in Srimad-Bhagavatam. So the message is same, but it is given according to the time, place, circumstances. The different acharyas, they explain Srimad-Bhagavatam according to the current scenario. Like for example, now we read Srimad-Bhagavatam in the first canto itself. Prabhupada mentions that this materialistic civilization, and he is criticizing this materialistic civilization a lot. But this Srimad-Bhagavatam first canto, Prabhupada wrote before previous 1960s, sitting in Vrindavan. He was in Vrindavan. At that time in Vrindavan there was no materialistic civilization, not prominent, not even there, we can say. There was no skyscraper building. But still Prabhupada could realize that in future this will be the situation. So according to time, place and circumstances, Prabhupada explains, these are the things. So from this we can understand that when it is coming through parampara, when it is explained, so we can see this knowledge. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was here, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, the Shad Goswamis, and they compiled so much literatures. And then it is passed on from the parampara, then Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and then Prabhupada. So everyone is giving the same message in the parampara, but when it passed down in the parampara, when it, like for example, when we see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's writing, now we have currently available that the commentary on Brahma Samhita. So the Brahma Samhita commentary by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, if we read that, it is very philosophical, very scholarly presentation it is. For a normal person, it is it's very difficult to understand, very, very difficult to grab the message. So even in the Nectar of Instruction, after the Prabhupada commentary, Prabhupada puts the commentary of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also. So we can see the difference. So how Prabhupada made it very simple to understand. Even a common person, he may not have any idea about spiritual knowledge or anything, a very basic knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. Even this books are kept in all the libraries in the Western world. The Westerners, they don't have any idea about Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, whatever. Even they could understand this. So the same message is given, but when it is explained by Srila Prabhupada, when we hear Prabhupada lectures, when we hear commentary by Prabhupada, so it is more connecting. So Prabhupada understood that when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was there, at that time people were more religious, they could understand things. But when Prabhupada went to West, at that time the situation was not similar when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was there. So at that time, when Prabhupada went to West, to give this message, it has to be more simpler, and the essence Prabhupada gave. So even when we attend this Bhakti Shastra course, so we see the previous Acharya's commentary also, Baladev Vidyabhushan and then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So after reading this commentary, you read Prabhupada commentary, the message is same. But directly when we read Baladev Vidyabhushan commentary or Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur commentary, so it is very difficult to understand. So then when we read Prabhupada commentary, it is more simplified, and a common man can understand this commentary. So Prabhupada gave this knowledge in a very simple manner that anybody can understand this. So that is the glory of this parampara system. So that's why here it is said, Vyasadeva spoke Srimad-Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami heard it from Vyasadeva, and when Shukadeva Goswami speaks Srimad-Bhagavatam, it becomes more nectar. So that's why it said Shukamukad Amrita Dravya Samhitam. So all the great devotees, they explain Srimad-Bhagavatam. So in that way, we should hear from a bona fide sampradaya, from a bona fide acharyas, we should hear Srimad-Bhagavatam. So there are many professional Bhagavatam reciters, they recite Srimad-Bhagavatam. So it is not recommended to hear from them. So it is said, Putam Harikatamritam, Shravanam na kartavyam. So even though milk, it looks like milk, it looks white, it like liquid, but still when the snake touches the milk, it becomes poisonous. So it is not, no more we can consider this as milk. So even though they are speaking Srimad-Bhagavatam, but when we hear from them, our spiritual life will be doomed. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Mayavadi bhashya sunile hoy sarvanash. So we should never hear Srimad-Bhagavatam from a professional reciter or who is not a devotee, who is not connected to the proper disciplic succession, parampara. So we should always hear Srimad-Bhagavatam from a bona fide devotee who is connected to the disciplic succession. So this question all came, like in the previous classes, this question came that from whom we should hear Srimad-Bhagavatam. Now, whether it impacts that from where we should hear Bhagavatam. So, of course, we should hear Srimad-Bhagavatam from pure devotees, but we should understand who is a pure devotee. Pure devotee means once Prabhupada went to Western, I don't know where exactly, Western world. So someone asked, Swamiji, can we become Brahmana? So Prabhupada said, yes, of course, you can become Brahmana, provided if you follow this regulative principles. No illicit sex, no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling. So when you follow these 4 regulative principles, then you can become Brahmana. So even when Jagai Madai was accepted by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they were so sinful, and all the sinful activities were done by Jagai and Madai. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted, he gave one condition, that I will accept you with one condition, that you should not repeat these sinful activities again, anymore. So with that condition, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted Jagai and Madai. So in same way, now if you want to find a pure devotee that always they are pure, then it is very difficult in Kali Yuga. When Kali progresses, people are so dull, manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya hyupatratha. So it is perfectly matching with people who are currently in this Kali Yuga. So in that case, we cannot even find a pure devotee. So Prabhupada explains that when you follow these 4 regulative principles and you chant your prescribed number of rounds, you attentively, and you follow the instructions of Guru, and you engage in devotional service, when you do this continuously, then you can become pure devotee. So a pure devotee doesn't mean that who is completely pure and he is completely in an elevated platform. Of course, he is a pure devotee, but still, if someone is trying to reach that level, he is also considered as a pure devotee. But still, there are different levels, different grades of pure devotees. Like for example, the 4 regulative principles: no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. So now we can see, like whoever is here, we never thought of like smoking a cigarette or like that. Like how many months back, like we would have thought of smoking. Hardly anybody would have thought of smoking. Like it's not, because we are practicing for months. So this thought even would have not come to our mind. So in that case, if we see in the same analogy, if we see for illicit sex, it may not be applicable. Many times we get this thought because many millions of lifetimes we are associated with this. So it is very difficult to come over. But in the same case, there are many elevated devotees. Like for example, in Bhagavad Gita it is said, what is that verse? The ocean is still, there is still so much. Apuyamanam achala pratishtam samudramapa pravishanti advat. So the desire comes, but still we have to neglect that desire. That is the next stage. So in the lower stage, the desire comes, and when the desire comes, we get disturbed. And then the next stage is when the desire comes also, then we are not disturbed. We are still like an ocean. And then the more elevated stages, they are not even getting the desire. So like for example, that about illicit sex, that thought even, it will not come to their mind. They are fully absorbed in thinking about Krishna, remembering Krishna. They are always glorifying Krishna. Like for example, there are elevated devotees like Prabhupada and the disciples of Prabhupada who are now taking over the movement now. So they are so elevated that they don't even get that thought. So a pure devotee, there are different grades. They are not even getting the thought, and if someone is getting the thought and they are not disturbed, and they are getting disturbed, so there are different levels of pure devotees. Of course, when we hear Srimad-Bhagavatam from a very elevated devotee who is not at all disturbed, who is always remembering Krishna, definitely we will get a full benefit. But the Bhagavatam itself has the potency to purify a conditioned soul, and it has a potency to take us back to Krishna. So it is emphasized that we should hear the glories of Srimad-Bhagavatam from a pure devotee. So if we hear Bhagavatam from a professional reciter or who is not a devotee, they are speaking Bhagavatam. Even though they are speaking Bhagavatam, it's like a material sound vibration only. Like Prabhupada gives example that with the same tongue we can taste sugar candy. It sweet taste. It tastes sweet. Sorry. So in same way, when we are affected by this jaundice, with the same tongue, when we eat sugar candy, then it is not sweet. So in same way, where they are speaking Bhagavatam, so when they speak Bhagavatam in the association of devotees, when they are practicing with devotees in the association, so then it becomes more nectar, it becomes more tasteful, and it has the ability to take us back to spiritual world, to take us back to Krishna. But when the same Bhagavatam is recited by a professional reciter who is not a devotee, who is not in the association of devotees, then it is like a material sound vibration. Prabhupada gives this analogy that this sugar candy. That's what in Bhagavatam it is mentioned. Satam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti hritkarna rasayana katha tajjoshanat ashvapavarga vartmani shraddha ratir bhakti ranukramishati. So when we hear Bhagavatam in the association of devotees, Satam prasangan, so in the association of devotees, we have to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. We have to hear Bhagavatam from the pure devotees of the Lord. So when we hear Bhagavatam in the association of devotees, Satam prasangan mama virya samvidho, so what will happen? What means bhavanti hritkarna rasayana katha. So it is very sweet, and it is very pleasing to the heart, and very pleasing to the ear. And Tajjoshanat ash apavarga vartmani. Apavarga, Prabhupada explains that the pavarga. So we become transcendental to this pavarga. So we get liberated. So when we are liberated from this material modes of nature, when we are above these three modes, so then immediately automatically follows is Shraddha, our faith will increase, and Bhakti. Shraddha, Rati. Rati means the attraction. Attraction towards Krishna, attraction towards Srimad Bhagavatam, attraction towards hearing about the glories of the Lord. It automatically increases. Shraddha, Ratir, Bhakti, of course the devotion to Krishna increases. Anukramishati, automatically. So when we hear Bhagavatam, the liberation, we become transcendental to the three modes of material nature, that is a side benefit given by Srimad Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam gives the ultimate benefit that we increase our bhakti towards Krishna, we increase our attraction to Krishna. So our attraction towards Krishna automatically increases. So in this way, in this verse it is mentioned that when it emanates from, when it comes through the lips of Shukadeva Goswami, it becomes more nectar. So it emphasized that we should hear Bhagavatam from a pure devotee who is in a parampara, who is in the association of devotees, who is practicing bhakti with following the instructions of Guru and Acharyas. So in that way we should hear Bhagavatam. So the ultimate benefit is we will increase our bhakti, we will increase our attraction to Krishna. Hare Krishna. Any questions, comments, please?
Bhagavatam is transcendental. It is on the level of Shuddha Sattva. It is beyond material modes. How is it possible that when something is in Shuddha Sattva, higher dimensional, some lower dimensional person is speaking it and it becomes poison? Instead, if it is real nectar, even if the snake tastes it, there should be no effect of poison in the nectar.
Yeah.
How is it that some person, lower level person, low class person speaks it and then the hearer, although Shuddha Sattva, but still gets poisoned?
Yeah.
So, and same with Krishna's name also. They say Krishna's name touched with serpent, milk, we shouldn't take it.
So in this connection, actually, there was one pujari. So it's in Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He goes to a temple. There in the temple there was one Brahma Rakshasa. So Brahma Rakshasa means he was practicing bhakti, but he was also committing some offenses, and then when he commits suicide or something like that, so he becomes a ghost. Okay. So Bhakti Vinod Thakur explains that he was pronouncing Krishna's words, but he was not actually chanting. So even though Krishna's name is spiritual, we see there is no difference between Krishna's name and Krishna. What is that verse, bro? There is no difference between Krishna's. Abhinatva nama namino. So it is said nama chintamani Krishna. So the Bhakti Vinod Thakur explains that we have to qualify ourselves to chant the pure name of Krishna. So there are 3 different levels of chanting, that Nama Aparad, Nama Abhas, and then Shuddha Nama. So a common example is given that as the mobile signal is transmitted by a transmitter, but we have some defect in our device. So when we have defect, when we have our receiver is not proper, so we will not be able to receive it properly. So in same way, Srimad-Bhagavatam is pure. So but when a professional reciter, when a materialistic person recites, he has some defect. He will not be able to get the Bhagavatam fully, and he will not be able to give it to others in the full essence. He cannot give. So whoever is hearing it, no, it is the receiving itself is some defect is there. Then how he can give it full essence? So the example is given is that milk and everything, but we have a defect. When in defective mode, when we are hearing something, and we cannot transmit to others in a pure way. So first we have to purify ourselves. First we have to engage in devotion. We have to follow the instructions of Guru. We have to chant, and then we have to purify our heart. So when we hear Bhagavatam, then even though when we hear from pure devotees, now like for example, we go even though we hear from pure devotees who are practicing very strictly, but we have some defect, we will not be able to get it properly. Even though Bhagavatam is pure, the speaker is also pure, but we have to follow the instruction. Like in Nectar of Instruction, the first verse Prabhupada gives example, an elephant goes to a river and it takes bath nicely. But after coming to the bank, again it puts mud on his head. So in same way, we are hearing Bhagavatam. After hearing Bhagavatam, again we come and commit all kind of sinful activities. We are breaking regulatory principles. We are not chanting properly. Then we may not get the effect. It is not that a professional reciter is reciting, he is not a devotee, so we will not get the effect. That is also there. But when we hear from pure devotee also, we have to accept it in a pure way. After hearing Bhagavatam, when we again commit sinful activities, then we may not get the proper effect. That's why we also mentioned that Jagai Madai, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted them with one condition, that you should not repeat it again, the sinful activities. So Bhagavatam has the full potency to deliver anyone, but we should qualify ourselves to be delivered from Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. So anything you want to add? Okay. Hare Krishna. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.